Okay.
Good morning and welcome to Ebony Horsewomen. My name is Pat Kelly and I'm the CEO of Ebony Horsewomen. And today we're going to do a virtual riding lesson for you so that you can kind of understand what we do with kids when they get here and why we do it. Before I do that, I want to introduce two of our riding instructors, Ms. Samantha Lang, here to my right, maybe your left, and Dominique Bourgeois to my left, maybe your right. These are phenomenal young women, and they are entrusted with our children and teaching them the riding techniques. Now, what I want to impress upon you is that it is absolutely true we teach kids how to ride. Obviously, we got horses and saddles and all of that, but that is really not the focus, as I said the last time. We are trying to get to a bigger picture. We're trying to get them to their best selves, as I said before. These magnificent animals help us do this. And through these animals, we're able to unlock potentials of emotions, and the intelligence is already there. I've been doing this for 33 years, and I got to tell you that the kids that we have today are brilliant, but they're inundated with a lot of stress and too much information flowing, and there's environmental factors that are going on, but they are brilliant children. And in order to break that shell, to get them to their better selves, we use these magnificent animals that God has given us to do that. The other piece of it is the physical aspect of the children as well. These kids, if you can imagine that many of them get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, they're at bus stops around 6 or 6:30. They're sitting in schools for a better part of 7 to maybe 9 hours. I don't even know if there's recess anymore. I don't know if there's gym anymore. There used to be gym when I went to school, but I don't know if gym exists anymore. And they're sitting there all day long. The bodies are not engaged. They're not getting the kind of exercise that they need. So, you know, it's just more stress, and the body is not being taken care of. And in order to be a whole person, it has to be the body, the mind, and the spirit. And with these magnificent animals, we get to that piece of opening up these kids. Now this beauty right here, this is Isis. Isis is a quarter horse, and I'm a cowgirl, and if you're a cowgirl, my sisters in the Midwest or anywhere else know that if you want a really good horse, you want a really solid quarter horse. Isis is this kind of horse. This is also the horse of our chairwoman, Heather Lawson. She has loaned her to us. Thank you, Heather. And she does a beautiful job for our children. I brought out two horses today to show you because there are two different types of riding that we teach. One is English. This is our basic teaching apparatus, the English riding form. But we also allow them to do Western when they get to a certain level. Now, why do we do that? We do that because riding a horse takes balance. It takes not only balance, but it takes a spirit and a mindset and an emotional stability to be able to do it successfully. But if you're going after the mechanics of riding, you must have balance. And in order to do that, you can get your greatest kind of balance from an English saddle. So this is what is known as an English saddle. I call it a wallet, riding on a wallet, because there's not very much leather here, as you can see. This right here is just enough to get you as close to the horse as possible. Samantha, can you just hold it still for a minute? This right here is enough leather to get you in the seat so that you are absolutely having to use your body for balance. And so you've got the saddle, you've got the stirrup leathers, and basically this is what you get, as opposed to a Western saddle that's over here. Now, if you're a cowgirl, like I'm a cowgirl, and if you happen to have horses and you use horses for work, like many of my sisters in the Midwest, and you're moving cattle and whatnot, this is the kind of saddle that you want. This is a basic working horse saddle. This is with a large horn and a lot of leather. Now, I like the lot of leather because it's forgiving. I still have to have the technique, I have to have the balance, but I get a little bit more cushion in this. As you can see, there's a lot more to this than it is to that. But in order to, in our teaching methods, in order to get the kids to get their true balance, we start off again with the English saddle. Now, what's important about all of this is that even when we get to this, it takes more than just the body. It takes the mind and the spirit. This is not a car. This is a living animal with a brain. And this animal has the ability to detect things that are going on in us that we are not articulating. This animal will know if I am depressed. This animal will know if I am angry or I'm confused or whatnot. This animal will know this. So in order to successfully ride this, I have to have the cooperation of this animal. And to get that, I have to regulate myself. And this is the beauty of what we do here, is that we are teaching the kids not only the mechanics of riding, but the management of self. And when you can manage self, then you can absolutely manage this large animal. Because physically, I mean, look at her. Physically, if she wanted not to be a part of this, she could just decide not to do it. And we're not strong enough to ask her not to do it. But what we want to do is not try to control this horse, but to work with this horse. And she's more than willing to work with us. Once we join with her, and it's not through conversation, it is through an emotion, through a spirit. So all of this works together to complete the whole riding experience. Now, I don't know why I thought I was going to be able to show you all of this in a half an hour. I'm pretty sure I can't, but we will get started and we'll try to do as much as we can. So, having said all of that, I'm going to ask Dominique to put India up, and we're just going to work with ISIS right now. So what we have here is the saddle, leathers, the stirrup, and the bridle. Now, a lot of new riders think that this is your control center. It is not. It is not. This is not where you control the horse. Again, the word control should not even come into play. This is a direction mechanism, if you will. This gives the horse an idea of what you want to do. You either want to move to the left, that's a girl, or you want to move to the right, that's a girl, or you want to stop. You pull back all together and you stop. So I'm going to have Samantha to mount the horse, which again is another piece of the equation that has to be executed very well indeed. So we're going to ask Samantha to put her helmet on because that's important. All of our kids must wear a headgear that is approved and is proper for this type of riding. It's not a bicycle helmet. See, she's a little nervous now because her buddy has left the arena. So she's like, well, why am I still here? Okay. All right, so we're going to ask Samantha to mount. Now, the purpose of this is to get into the saddle and to begin the process of learning balance. Now, what's important about this is that, number one, the saddle should fit the horse. It should be the right type of saddle for the type of lesson that we're going to be giving, and that it also fits the rider as well. So that balance has to be sought out very carefully. What we want to do when we're starting to teach kids how to ride, their natural inclination, because of all of the stimulation underneath them, is to clinch. And in order to successfully ride a horse, you do not want to bring those muscles into play. You don't want to grip with the knees. You don't want to squeeze, because what you're actually doing is telling the horse to move. So what we're asking for is to sit straight up in the saddle. We want to be able to try to bring a straight line from the back of the ear, through the shoulder, through the hip line, to the back of her heel. And if we can accomplish that, then we're sitting pretty decently on the saddle. Her legs are almost at a 45-degree angle. And if you notice her feet is a little cocked. Her heels are down and her toes are up. Now, what's important with that is, what you want to do is sit into the saddle in such a way where your hip bone is coming down into the saddle. So anyone who is standing, if you are putting your weight on your toes, you are falling forward. But if you put your weight into your heels, it's absolutely bringing your hips down into the seat, the saddle, what have you. So we want that to happen. Now, this can't happen overnight. It takes a while for this muscle here to stretch and for the ankles to automatically cock down, if you will, so that you get that kind of flexing of the feet. You also want to make sure that in the beginning that the heels are pretty much behind the girth area, because anything in front of this girth area, this piece that holds the saddle together, gives the horse one kind of information. With the legs further enough behind, gives the horse a different kind of information. Now, so I'm getting into the mechanics of riding a horse, but I don't want to leave out why we use the horse for the work that we do with the children. Again, I think that's very important. Children are inundated with a lot of stress today, more than my generation, certainly. As I said earlier, a lot of them don't get recess or gym, or many of them don't play sports. And so you've got a body that is not being used, but the mind and the spirit are being challenged and overtaxed all the time. And that's not a good recipe for education or for anything else. And it's certainly not a good recipe for making sound decisions, okay? So when you bring a sport like the equestrian sport into play, there are two things happening. There are a lot of things happening, not just two. There are a lot of things happening, one of which you're bonding with an animal that has feelings and a brain. She cannot do this without the cooperation of ISIS. And so what we're doing is teaching kids nonverbal communications. We're teaching them how to build a relationship. And empathy, which is very, very important, especially today, because a lot of people have lost that essence of empathy, and that is caring for another life, whether it be animal or the guy next to you, or the gal next to you. So all of this is very important, and of course the body is engaged as well. So, when we teach the kids how to ride, we start off with balance. And one of the things that we want to do is to get them to understand what balance is and balance is not. So balance is not in your hands. You cannot use your hands to balance yourself into that saddle. Your hands are there for direction and for stopping, okay? But your balance begins in your solar plex, and the energy that has to flow out from the solar plex in both directions, upward and downward. And we want a flow of air and energy and oxygen to move through the body. Otherwise, you get trapped in certain muscle areas, and that begins to, the horse can feel it, and it begins to throw the horse off balance as well. So we don't want that. And you can't have true balance when you're blocked up on the inside. So one of the things that you'll hear one of the instructors say often is, are you breathing? Are you breathing? And if they're breathing, then we know that there's no blockage in the solar plex, that the energy is going up and the energy is flowing down. We also want to teach them that the balance is not in gripping in the knee area as well. Your balance is actually in your seat area, your lower leg. So I asked the kids if they can dance, and all of them say they can. And many of them cannot, which I don't understand that for my kids, because all of them should have some rhythm. But some of them can't dance a lick, which is a problem, because when you're sitting to a horse rhythm, you really have to sway with them. But all of my Latin kids can do it. All of my Latin kids got the spring and the rhythm and all of that. So when you're sitting to a saddle, your muscles should be fluid enough without collapsing and sitting like a turtle, but all your muscles should be fluid enough so that you can stay with the movement of the horse. And the horse has 4 legs. It's not a car. He can move and sway, and you need to be able to follow that. So I'm going to ask Samantha to pick up her reins. And the kids are taught how to hold the reins as well. They're held in the hands, little fingers tucked under. The excess part of the reins are forward. And there should be a straight line, riding in the English discipline as opposed to the Western. A straight line from the horse's mouth straight through to her elbow. And her actual forearms become an extension of the reins. Takes a long time. Remember this? We got ice falling off the arena. That's the noise you hear. It takes a long time to really master this, if you ever can master it at all. But this is the proper way of holding your reins. So once we get that accomplished, we teach the kids how to move the horse to the left with the left arm. Can you move her head? Yes. And then to the right. And if you can get the head to move, the whole body will move as well. When one hand is engaged, the other hand is not. So there's not a pulling with both hands. The horse is going to be confused if you're going to use both hands. And you want to use one hand, the other hand becomes very supple so that the horse's neck can move. In order to get the horse to move, we use our lower legs, okay? What I don't like to see happen is kids kicking the horse. We don't want to kick the horse. We want to bring pressure in with both legs. That's the cue to move forward. And if the horse then doesn't move with the first amount of pressure, then we add a little bit more pressure until the horse is moving. What's critical also with this is that we don't want to be pulling back while we're asking the horse with our legs to move forward. So all of this has to move in concert. So we're going to ask Samantha to move off around the arena, please. Now, you can't see me, but I want you to pay attention to Samantha right now. So what's happening here, obviously, are the mechanics of the rider and the horse moving. But there's something else happening underneath. The child, the youth, or whoever is taking the lesson, absolutely is going to have their minds on what this horse is doing. And if this horse is doing something that is unusual or that brings some sort of concern to the rider, that rider is going to want to hear what the instructor has to say to bring that horse back in hand. And this is where we build focus and concentration. When you have 1,100 pounds beneath you that is not complying to what you think you're asking the horse to do or doing things involuntarily, you really going to want to hear what this instructor has to say. So instead of listening to me for 13 seconds, that rider is going to be focused on my voice for the entire riding lesson. This is how we increase focus and concentration time that carries over to school. A lot of kids in school today, because of the information age and all the other fast information and things that are going on, have lost focus and concentration time. They don't do as well in school as they can because they hear maybe 15 seconds of the instruction and they answer based on what they have allowed themselves to hear. When we can lengthen that instruction time, when we can lengthen that focus time on instruction, that is when the child hears the entire instruction and then can do very well in school. This is one of the greatest pieces of success that we've had with our programs and our kids doing well in schools, because this focus time is being expanded by taking riding lessons. Now, as Samantha is moving around the arena, you can see that Isis wants to pick up a faster pace. And she's having to keep her concentration to keep Isis at a walk. So that means this child, this rider, the adult, whomever, has to check their body. What am I saying to this horse with my body? Am I squeezing? Am I asking this horse to move faster? Do I have some sort of emotional something going on with me that's making this horse want to move away from me or faster under me? All of these things come into play, and all of these things we talk to the rider about. And as they are going through this process, they begin to understand themselves. They begin to get in touch with their bodies. What am I doing with my body? Am I pulling? Am I squeezing? Am I pressing? And all of that is consciousness, which is what we're after. We're after getting to a conscious place of kids so that they can get to their best selves. Now we're taking you through a riding lesson that is going to be accelerated. So I'm going to ask Samantha to pick up a trot. A trot is a 2-beat gait. And what you see Samantha doing right now is called a post-in trot. This is where the rhythm comes into play. You have to be able to understand the beat of the horse, the placement of the legs, the timing of the legs, and to move with that. Samantha, would you do a sitting trot? The sitting trot is to sit to every beat that is happening in this trot without coming out of the saddle. And now to a post-in trot is to sit to every other beat in the saddle. So now the kids have to understand what that beat rate is and to bring their bodies up. Now, in order to do this, she is not bringing her body weight up by her toes, but it is actually through her heels and the movement of the saddle. The saddle is giving her some help as well. So when the horse's hips moves forward, it is absolutely bringing her up, if you could see that. And so she's just using that little momentum to then give a little pressure in her heels in rhythm time to sit to every other beat. One of the ways that we help to create this rhythm understanding in the rider is to start them off with a sitting trot, and they can feel the 2-beat gait. This means that the horse's legs are moving diagonally in a 2-beat time. Once they can feel that, then we ask them to sit to this beat for every other bounce. Another way that we can help to accomplish this is to ask the rider, or teach the rider, not ask, teach the rider to sit at what is called a 2-point. And that is when the rider is absolutely out of the saddle altogether. It almost resembles a jockey. And that rider now is using her lower leg strength without pressure on her arms, her hands, her reins to stand up out of the saddle. And now, Samantha, if you would go back to a post and trot, please. Now, what is also important here is that not only that Samantha has the rhythm, but now she must move to that post and trot on the correct diagonal, which means that when the horse's outside leg comes forward, then she should be rising on that outside leg. So when she goes around again, I'm going to have her to come back in and come to the middle so that I could explain one other thing. How are we doing on time? About 10 minutes. Okay. Samantha, can you come in and stop for a minute? So this is where we start using terminology and some abstract thought. So when we talk about movement with the horse, we talk about movement within this space here, and we talk about moving clockwise and counterclockwise. And I gotta tell you, this is a really big problem because many kids today don't know how to read clocks. You know, everything is digital now. So they don't know clockwise and they don't know counterclockwise. So we have to teach them that. So when we're talking about moving clockwise, we're talking about a movement of your rhythm that's in that beat when the outside leg comes forward. So now we're talking about inside rein and outside rein. So inside rein is the rein and the leg that's closest to the middle of the arena. So in this point, it is her right hand with the rein in it and her right leg. When we talk about her outside hand and leg, we're talking about the left. Now that changes depending upon the direction that you're going in. So this is making the kid stop and really have to think about, am I moving clockwise or counterclockwise? And what then is my inside hand and my inside leg? Which then, and then when I ask the child to change direction, now what is my inside rein and my outside leg? So all of this is getting the child to think while in movement with this big horse underneath them. And that is bringing what I like to think, the juices of the mind up. It is beginning to get them to think in real time what's happening and to respond to this. So riding a horse is very mental. It's very mental. Not only is it spiritual and emotional, but it's very, very mental. The child must first hear the instruction. They must process the instruction, and now they have to implement the instruction through their body. And that's the recipe for any educational apparatus anywhere, anytime. And we can accomplish this and really fine-tune it with kids through writing lessons, because then the writing lessons can become advanced when I start to talk about moving 2 degrees forward or 2 degrees backwards, or putting weight in your left cheek as opposed to your right cheek. And all of these things are giving messages to the horse as to how to move his body or her body. So I get really excited about this because when I see my kids pulling this off, I know they're engaged, I know they're thinking, and I know their brilliance is coming out. All I want it to happen now, take that to school, transfer it to school, and let me see the report card. Because I know what you're doing in here, and I know it's transferable, and I want to see it. So all of this is, I just think this is the best thing in the world. If you got a kid that's having problems in school, you get them down here. I think we could do something with that. So I'm going to ask Samantha to move off again. I think we only have a few more minutes. 5 minutes? Okay. I'm going to have Samantha to move off. And I'm going to ask her to do, start off with a walk, take it then to a trot, sitting trot, then a post and trot, and then a canter. Now this is 3 of the 4 gaits that a horse has. A horse has 4 gaits, and there are different beats in each gait. And I'm just going to spend the next 5 minutes with you watching this beautiful rider ride this beautiful horse. And thank you for tuning in. And we're going to take in part 2 of this in a couple of weeks.
Thank you for the direction.
You could do whatever you like. This is the horse that TJ rode at the Folly Farms Horse Show a couple of weeks ago and won a blue ribbon. She is truly a magnificent, beautiful animal. So as I was saying before, Samantha is rising to the outside leg movement. She's on the correct diagonal. She's going to pick up a canter, which is the 3rd beat in a horse's 4-beat gaits. Now she's got off on the wrong lead, but now she's picking up the correct lead. Now, this correct lead is important because the inside leg must come forward first to keep the horse on a correct balance. Now this, if you look at her hands, they're not yanking, they're not pulling. She's not using her hands for balance. They are for direction. They are holding up her shoulders. So Samantha is an instructor, and she's a beautiful rider herself. Samantha, when you get down to C, can you change directions, please? It takes a while to get to this. Now, in order to get the horse off on the correct lead, she had to give pressure with her correct leg, to have the horse to move off with the correct leg himself in this direction. And if you can notice her reins, they're not popping on the side of the horse. She's giving him a good amount of support with her hands. Samantha, see if you could just slow her down just a tad bit. And that can be accomplished just by moving her weight backwards. That's those degrees that I was talking about before. Just by putting more weight on the horse's hindquarters with her weight can slow the gait down. And she's talking to Isis. All right, folks, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.